Okay, so my name's Daniel Payam. I'm a business management and computer science major. I work through the SURE program, and my mentor was Dr. Teshik. And my project was working on the COVID-19 dataset in the United States at the county level and analyzing the relationships between the deaths, infections, and vaccination rates.
My name is Kennedy Farrow. I'm a double major in English and physics. I completed the SHORE program here on campus with my advisor, Dr. Blagoy Rangelov in the physics department. And that project focused on the numerical simulation of X-ray binary systems. And specifically, I wrote a program that characterized black hole formation at different metallicities, so in different environments.
My name is Nicholas Corral, and I'm a biochemistry major. I don't have an actual research program that I've ever been a part of, but I've definitely tried to get my foot in the door with all of the different programs from URISE to FREM or the SURE program, which is no longer active. So I'd be happy to talk more about how you can get involved independently through collaboration with like a PI. And my research project with Dr. Ryan Peterson was a synthetic biology project. And all that means is using cells, using bacteria to find a novel way of detecting microplastics in their environments. So that's my project.
Hi, I'm Joanna Zepeda. I'm a senior biology major. I participated in the SURE program as well. And I'm currently, at the time, I worked in Dr. Tanya Betancourt's laboratory. I'm still in her laboratory. And my past and current project focused over the development of hydrogels and specifically their photothermal modulation through the incorporation of p-dot nanoparticles.
Hi, my name is Madison Johnson. I'm a biochemistry major. I work with Dr. Karen Lewis, and I study LARP6, which is an RNA binding protein that regulates collagen synthesis. And my project is just trying to determine how mutations in the RNA binding part of the protein affects the structure and function of it.
Hi, my name is Carly Campos, and I'm an electrical engineering major with a focus in micro nano devices. I've not participated in much research, but I did an internship at Flex Radio Systems from December through June last year, and then from June through December, I did a co-op experience with Cummins. Both of them were extremely important to me. The Flex Radio Systems one, I was working on a consumer radio, so I redesigned the power system and recreated their PCB to include the newly designed power system and integrated the tablet with the control board. And then the Cummins one, I worked on two high-profile projects. So one was total cost of ownership, where I helped them create a new algorithm using Python to combine a bunch of tools that were market dependent into a single market independent tool. And then the other project is a fuel consumption measurement device, which I did sensor integration and protocol conversion between Modbus to CAN to get rid of all of our analog signals. And yeah, those are mine.
Okay.
During the 2021 SHARE program, that was my first time ever being involved in a research lab, so I kind of went into it kind of blindly. I kind of had some expectations of what the scientific process and what it was, but I think one of the greatest things I learned is that with the research you're doing, it's not a linear process. You might go into it thinking that you're just going to continue skyrocketing upwards with your data, with your project, and it's not like that. A lot of it is trial and error, going back to the books, reading articles, and then just continuing on from there.
Okay. Was it what you expected?
Yes and no. It was what I expected in terms of working in a lab. It's very hands-on, but I think in terms of what I didn't expect was just how individual you are with your project. It's a lot of responsibility on you and a lot of self-motivation to continue doing your project.
Okay.
I think something I didn't anticipate from growing up and learning about how science is done, I didn't anticipate starting a project and not knowing where I was going at all, really. we had an open source program that could do a lot of things, and our first goal was just to test some stuff out and see what we found, and then that would tell us what we were looking for and which path to follow. So that was something that I was sort of surprised by, that it didn't start with a hypothesis. It started with just sort of exploring, and then the project telling us what we needed to look into further.
I think for me, a big wake up for me was learning what a data set really looked like, because up to that point, most of the data that I'd ever looked at was very neat or very small in scale. And after working with the COVID-19 data set, even though a lot of it is government issued, there are a lot of holes or just misinputs in it. So I really learned that when it gets to a certain scale, it doesn't really matter who issues it or how professional it may look. There's usually a lot of errors.
Yeah, I would really just second what Joanne said as far as it being a big responsibility that you're really involved in, because I didn't expect to have to come up with protocols and things that I needed to do in order to accomplish my goal. Because before, I didn't mention it earlier, but I was in the SURE program and I'm in URISE now. So before the SURE program, I had only been in chemistry like lab classes before, where they tell you what to do. So it was very interesting to have to come up with my own ideas in terms of how to get my goal accomplished.
Strange of like tasks or just projects you can be put on, because I was originally put on I was told I would be working on spreadsheets the whole time at the beginning of my co-op, and then I just kind of met my team and they told me about a few of the problems that they've been facing, and I was like, oh well, what if we had this type of sensor here, this type of sensor to like actually measure this rather than just accepting the error of it. And so then my entire co-op shifted into working on those sensors. So I mean, I think what the most surprising thing is just what you can, the projects you can be put on and how easy it is to kind of pivot into different ones, and how different they can be, just because the hardware one at Flex Radio System was so like PCB, like electronic specific hardware design and all of that, and then when I got to the co-op, I was like, it's going to be spreadsheets, and then it totally wasn't spreadsheets. So
Yeah, I would agree with just about everything everyone said. I think something that I didn't expect as much was, I guess, when you get started, you don't really know anything, and you start asking questions, and after, there's a certain threshold to where, your PI or your mentor at the time is just gonna say, I actually don't know, and then it's kind of up to you to figure it out, and it can be really rewarding to kind of look back. I don't know if all of you can kind of look back and see, oh, I answered, tons of questions in my year, or a couple years, or 3 years of doing research or your co-op. It's, and then, the next generation of the person taking on your project after you're gone just kind of starts where you left off, and they didn't have no idea all the work and time and effort you put into your project, and that can be really rewarding too, because you can actually feel really productive in this project that you decided to take on for yourself. So that's something that just always kind of catches me off guard. It's wow, you had to answer a lot of questions to get to the point where you are now.
Okay, thank you. And
Perhaps kind of uniquely, I started research summer of 2020, where almost nobody was in the research lab because of COVID and restrictions of working in a laboratory. So I just wanted to get some more hands-on experience in a time where everything was online. So I started looking at the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry website to see who was accepting students. I sent a few emails. I heard back from Dr. Peterson first, and a few others, and eventually met with all of them. But yeah, it was just a dead email. I hit him up, and he was more than happy to come and talk to me. And I guess my decision to join his lab was more of a personal decision. Dr. Peterson joined TXST maybe 3 years ago maybe. So he was just starting his lab. There was nobody in there, or maybe one senior and a graduate student who then left shortly after I got there. And my point is I like starting things in college. I like starting new programs or whatnot. And so being a part of a brand new lab, brand new projects, really trying to like find the new directions for this new lab with a new PI was really enticing and exciting. And I knew I was going to get a lot of hands-on attention from Dr. Peterson. And my intuition was right. Like after the first few weeks, like I realized, like, you know, we talked every day. He was very, very communicative and responsive, despite the fact that I didn't even meet him in person until December that year because of COVID. So like, I mean, we were always FaceTiming. I'd be in the lab by myself, junior with no experience, doing experiments, and he would kind of walk me through it, and eventually the lab grew, we got more people, and we all learned off each other. But yeah, I mean, you can meet a mentor through a program like Shore, or you can just ask, and that's what I did.
So you basically just said like, hey,
I just,
can I join?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, good deal. Yeah, it's that easy. So yours slightly different program than the rest.
Yeah.
It says yours is part of your degree, correct? Is that in my?
It's not a requirement.
No, it's not a requirement.
No.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us how you got involved in that.
So the Flex Radio Systems, Steve, who's like the engineering manager, he's the one in charge of all the like hardware stuff. He actually called me because my resume was on, what is it? One of the sites. It was on. He saw my resume.
Actually, we did a special resume depository during COVID to make it easy for our the employer partners to hire our students.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he reached out to me, and it was just a phone call, and we kind of chatted about like the projects that were going on there, and I said that I was like very interested in it, and so I think I had like another phone interview, and that's how I started with that one. And then Cummins, I met at the SWE conference, the Society of Women Engineers conference. That was virtual, so none of the site just kind of kept like crashing on the virtual career fair, and no one could get through to each other, so it was just like us pinging each other back and forth like 6 times, and we're like, did you see my call? And it was like, no, did you see mine? We finally like were able to connect, and it was great, and I got an interview for, I think, 3 days later, and got an offer within like an hour of finishing that interview. But I just kind of chatted with my interviewer for a good like 2.5 hours. This is a 1-hour interview. We just kind of kept chatting. It was great. He was awesome. He was an actual researcher working on the hydrogen cells at Cummins. And so I got to see like in our big like quarterly presentations and whatever, he was getting a patent award from Cummins during that, and I was like, that's so cool. And then for mentors, we are given a mentor, like we are assigned a mentor, someone on our team is our mentor at Cummins whenever you start, but I actually gained other mentorship as well. So the like global technology director, she is involved with SWE, and so she ended up like meeting me just through my mentor who's also involved with SWE, and so we kind of like all chatted, and so I have her mentorship, and then I have other mentors because I'm also involved in FIRST Robotics. I'm a robotics team coach for my old high school. And so that's kind of like how I gain my mentorship, is just like, oh, I'm really interested in robotics, and they'll be like, oh, here, let me give you 5 people to call right now.
Madison, how did you meet Dr. Kerr? That's who you worked with, correct? Am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah,
Yes.
I worked
Okay,
with
got it.
Dr. Curran for the SURE
Steel trap.
program. I had met him during a junior level class, and for the SURE program, we're kind of, like, you pick who your mentor is, so that was a pretty easy process. But the mentor that I work with now, Dr. Lewis, I actually cold emailed her because this was while I was taking Dr. Kerwin's class. So it's junior year, and I had no research experience, and I was like, I kind of need to start doing something. I'm a junior, let's get this going. So I just looked on the department website, saw her that she worked with proteins, and I knew I liked proteins. So I just cold emailed her, and we set up a Zoom meeting, and later that semester I started working in her lab.
Okay. John?
Yeah, so I work with Dr. Benningcourt, and I actually met her through SI. So are you guys familiar with SI? Yeah, supplemental instruction? No? It's basically like a tutor. So I was in SI for general chemistry 2, and one of the semesters I was assigned to her lecture to help tutor the students. And I didn't know she did research at the time, but from other students in her class, actually, I heard them talking about her research. So I just looked it up. I got really interested in it, and then I sent her an email, and then I also went to her office, and by luck, I guess she was in her office, so I was able to sit down and talk to her and express to her that I wanted to get involved in research and that I specifically wanted to work in her lab, and then she said yes, and I applied.
Okay. Let's see, Kennedy.
Yeah, so I also sought out my mentor, Dr. Rangelov, in the physics department. At the end of my freshman year, I sort of knew through like word of mouth and meeting with other students who was doing research in astrophysics, and I knew sort of things that I was interested in. I had just taken our computational modeling course, so I really wanted to do something computationally and things like that. So I had an email drafted for the longest time, and I was sitting with my friend, and he was just like, you should just send it. What do you mean you haven't asked, you know? So I sent an email to him. We ended up meeting in what I thought was an informational interview. At the end of our conversation, he had described all these projects that he's working on, and he was like, so which one? And I was like, oh, this one sounds good, you know? And sort of found my project that way. Yeah, it was really wonderful. And then he ended up being my mentor a few years later for the short program.
Okay. And Daniel.
So I got paired with my professor through the SURE program, but prior to that, literally the semester before, she was my object-oriented professor, and she was actually the one that sent the email out to the class saying like, oh, this is SURE program, you guys should all apply. Basically, the higher the grade you get in the class, the higher the chance you can work with her, and I got a pretty good grade in the class. So that summer I got my email back saying that I was paired with her, and after that I've just been working with her ever since.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, so
Could I
move
just-
on.
so
Yo, no, go ahead. Yeah.
The question was like, how'd you find your mentor? And a lot of us, it kind of like has to do with how we found a research lab. But like you could kind of pick up on it, like Dr. Lewis was your teacher at one point, and later now she's her mentor. And like you said, it was a course as well.
Mm-hmm.
Through a course, Daniel found his mentor. So like, yeah, you can, would you say cold email principal investigators to see if they're interested, but just take advantage of those interactions you have with your faculty members in the department, or the courses that you take essentially, and the connections you make through them, because you never know, it could turn out into a really good mentor.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah. All right.
So I started my project in 2019, so I sort of knew what was going on, and by the time I was in the short program, definitely the most difficult aspect was managing not being with my advisor. And luckily, computational astrophysics, you can do it at a distance. Can't really do it on site, studying the stars. But so I was able to work from home and pretty set up in that way. But I would say in general, the most difficult aspect of research was the learning curve. Our physics program here is quite small, and now there are more programs or more classes, but there were only 2 astronomy or astrophysics related courses that I was able to take. So, and exiting my freshman year, I had finished my intro series, and that was about it. That was all I had to offer, and needed to really approach that learning curve to be prepared for a study in astrophysics. So a lot of reading and a lot of catching up and things like that. And I would say with the short program, the main struggle there, I was actually also completing a separate REU internship remotely with the CU Boulder Solar Alliance program. So professional development for sure, and then going to speak with my mentor for that, and all these different programs going on. It was quite a bit of learning and growing and managing my time.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see, Madison. What was the most difficult part for you?
I think the most difficult part for me was stuff not working in the beginning. I really wasn't used to that at all. So at the SURE program, it was over the summer, and I think it was the first 2 weeks, like 3 of my experiments didn't work. So I had no independent research experience, and it started out with nothing working, and it kind of made me think like, oh no, like is this how research always is? Nothing like ever works ever, but that's not the case. But yeah, I would definitely just say that I wasn't prepared to fail right off the bat, but I think it definitely made me a better researcher, and it teaches you drive and tenacity.
Absolutely. Let's see, Dan.
I really agree with what Kennedy said about the learning curve. For me, going into, I already knew basically my programming language of C, ++ and Java, but I never used Python. And going into this data science environment, I had to basically crash course myself on Python. And not only that, but I also had to learn the math aspect of it with our graph theory, and that was just to basically understand the fundamentals of the project itself. And in the SURE program, we had, what was it, maybe like 8, 10 weeks?
Mm-hmm. 10 weeks.
Yeah, 10 weeks to go from nothing to our presentation. And I had to use the first 2 weeks basically just getting my fundamentals down. So really getting past that learning curve and getting to work was the hardest part for me.
Let's see, still, Kayla, what, you're in an internship and you have
Yeah.
a co-op, so what's been difficult about that?
Definitely things not working was also a big one for me. The project at Flex Radio that I was given was, they just handed me this control board and they're like, it won't power on, we don't know why, here you go.
Mhm.
And so I literally had to like learn how to test everything and how to use like oscilloscopes and look at every single IC, and I'd never worked with like an actual like control board or PCB with like components on it, and they're very tiny and it's under a microscope, so you're trying to probe something that's like literally like a millimeter wide, and it was difficult to say the least, especially when you're doing current measurements, because there was a lot of wires, a lot of cables, it was a mess. But when I finally got it, it took 2 weeks. When I finally like figured out the power system problem, then we found the other problems, and so they just kind of like, everything just kind of, snowballed a little bit, and then we figured out how to solve it all eventually. But learning patience with that was definitely a pretty big one. I also did have to crash course myself with Python for doing data analysis on our our field test results for that fuel consumption measurement device, and that was also rough. But I'm glad that I know it now. Like I think it's fun.
Excellent, thank you. Nicholas, what difficulties have you run across in your research?
Yeah, I mean,
and your project?
again, going with like the whole trend of joining a new lab, doing it kind of without a research program, having like very little direction. I don't know how much, like relative to other people, but I just felt like I had no direction. Like there were no lab protocols. Everything we had to kind of draft up ourselves. And I'm really grateful for the other people that were in my lab at the time that kind of helped me do that collaboratively. But yeah, just having like no direction, really trying to like figure it out yourself, and then now being able to say like, yeah, I can actually put my name on that protocol and say like, this is how we purify proteins in the lab, for example. That's pretty awesome, and yeah, that was a challenge though. I won't downplay how hard that was.
Sounds like it, yeah. And Joanna?
Kind of agreeing with everyone. I felt like the biggest challenge for me was kind of changing my mindset of shifting from seeing failure as something you should run away from. Instead, you should see it in terms of research, you should see it as something that you build off of. So instead of seeing it as like a setback, just build off of it and continue on.
I will say too, we've talked about failures and things not working, and working with code in Python and everything. Sometimes you don't know how close you are to everything working out, and it can be one small thing or one small failure away from it all actually being fine, and you're making quite a bit of progress or finding a big piece of success. So that's sort of difficult because you never really know where that point is, and you just feel in the cloud of it not working, and then you change a comma and it's all fine.
That's why mindset's so important. Like you can't just think of failure as like doing it wrong, because you learn, ideally you're supposed to learn from that failure, and so any sort of, like whether it was what you were expecting or what you weren't expecting, at the end of the day you kind of learn something, and that allows you to move forward. And like you said, like you never know, you might just hit a breakthrough. I mean,
Nothing that I had like really worked on and like so intensely before. Like in high school, I was in theater, so I, been in a show and something like that, and that was about like the extent to it. But this was something that one I did myself and with my team, right? But it was something that it was my answers, So it had that little bit of a fear because I was the one answering these questions. I had to basically tell everyone what I had been doing for the past 3 months. And it was really that inner battle of, is it enough? Is this what people like? Are people even interested in this? Luckily for me, I was working with the COVID-19 data set, so it was pretty relevant. And it was really satisfying. It was a really nice experience. And in the beginning of my research, and just throughout, people always said that it's easy to ask questions to professors about their research because they love talking about it. Like professors are really big geeks, like they love talking about what they do because they love to do it. And as you get further into your research, you really develop a love for it. Like data science is everything to me now. I really, really love the art. And that was one of the big things I got from my presentation. And people are really nice too. Like when they come up to you, they're genuinely intrigued into what you're working on. And they see these big pictures and they see all these different colors on your poster. And you just talk to them. You just have a conversation about what you've done. Like you were talking to a family member, a friend, you just talk to them.
Kennedy, is it a similar experience for you?
Yeah. By the time I had presented with the SHORE program, I had presented a couple times with the other RU I was part of, and it definitely gets easier as it goes on, but I get very anxious for these things, especially a talk. A poster presentation, like maybe you can get away with them just kind of looking at your poster, and maybe you don't have to say anything, but depending on your personality or just your temperament that day, right, it can be very nerve-wracking. I'm at the point where I now swallow and blink throughout the presentation. So I'm at a good point in making lots of progress on those things. And I'm at the point where I can sort of calm myself and be confident and remember what happened. Sometimes I'll get to the end and I'll be like, what happened? Someone show me a recording because I'm not sure what I said. But yeah, it takes practice and it's difficult, but absolutely rewarding. And I think it's really fun to engage with your audience in that way. With the SHORE program specifically, we speak to general audiences, and so communicating the story of what you're working on rather than the sort of intricate scientific details is really fun to do and chat about, because like you said, we're geeks about it too. Once you've been working on it for long enough, you want to talk about it. So.
Nicholas, do you agree?
Yeah, I'll just echo that. Like Kennedy really nailed it. Like the Schroeder Symposium was like a general audience. So like, how am I supposed to explain somebody who has no background in biology or biochemistry my synthetic biology microplastic detection project in an interesting way that actually like gets them talking and asking questions and piques their curiosity. So that was like a really important skill that I wouldn't say I mastered at that symposium, but it was a good stepping stone for something like that, because it was just a pretty relatively small symposium at Texas State. So like that's a great place to kind of get that first experience if you hadn't already. And you get your reps in, because like as soon as you're finished talking with somebody else walks up and you can really start rehearsing and fine-tuning how you articulate your project. So yeah, that presenting's fun. Like Daniel said, you really start to like get a sense of pride for the work that you put into.
Kind of the same thing. I agree with everyone. At first, yeah, I was very nervous. It was the first time I was ever presenting to a general audience, but it does get easier over time, and I think it does help you in other aspects of your social life as well. Like now I feel like I can better pick up social cues in terms of when giving research, whether someone's confused about something, whether someone wants to know more about something just by their facial expressions or by maybe like a shoulder movement or something. You can tell if they're confused. And also too, I feel like it's helped just in general life, in the basis that I feel more comfortable just going up and having a conversation with someone now.
Madison?
I agree with what everyone's been saying. It is definitely something difficult to do if you don't have experience with it, or like Kennedy was saying, depending on your personality type. Like personally, I'm shy. Public speaking is not something that is very fun or easy for me. But it is really rewarding to be able to share your research experiences with other people, and to see their enthusiasm when they understand this project that you've put so much time and effort into. So it's not always the easiest thing to do, but it is definitely rewarding.
Yeah, Kayla?
So mine is probably not nearly as many people or as large of an audience, but I did a midpoint co-op presentation at Cummins, and then I did a final, like the end of co-op presentation as well. Definitely was terrified for both, but I was able to ask my manager as well as my mentor to just let me practice with it. So I think that I practiced about 5 times with them before my midpoint co-op presentation. And mostly because I only knew about it 2 days in advance because I wasn't supposed to actually do one. And they were like, you know what, we'll just throw you in there, it's fine. Just because most co-ops do separate semesters where you do a semester, a summer, or whatever, or a semester during the summer, a co-op during the summer, then you take a break and you go to school during the fall, and then you would do another co-op period in the spring. So I did mine straight through, 6 months straight through. So they're like, it's not really the end of your like co-op, it's not really like an end of an internship or anything, but you can do a midpoint like update. So I did that, and it went really well. I had like some of the VPs ask some like really difficult questions, like challenging questions about the stuff that I was working on. And I actually really appreciated them, and so we ended up just kind of like talking about it for a while and went way over our time, but that's okay. And then I did have to do it's like a stakeholder update, so I actually got to do the technical aspect of the stakeholder update to Komatsu? It was the Komatsu one. So that was actually like a huge one. Also, that one was a little bit more terrifying just because it was like an external company and it's one of our like biggest like clients that we had. But I got to, present my information, my data, and my the algorithm research that I'd been doing. And all of the presentations went really well. Like I got really good feedback afterwards, and it wasn't so bad like by the final co-op presentation. But practice, definitely practice. That is the biggest thing. And find someone who you're comfortable like just being able to practice and like laugh at yourself with too. That's a big thing. Like my mentor is like this. She's one of the sweetest ladies ever. So I'd be like, oh, like I messed up. I'm sorry. Like I just can't get my words right today. And she's like, it's fine. We'll just we'll take a break. We'll like let me show you my cat. And then we're like, cool. All right, let's start over.
It was alright, honestly. No, it was great, yeah. Of course, I mean, I loved my research project. I honestly don't want to pursue it in graduate school or in my career, but I chose the project because I would learn many fundamentally important biochemical techniques, and that's what mattered. I mean, I honestly place choosing the right mentor above the right research project. But again, you should do something you enjoy at least. So that's kind of what I did, and I'm still going into the lab today, and I really do enjoy it, and starting to write my thesis for it, and it's like coming to a close. Kind of sad, kind of weird, because like eventually someone else is going to take it up, and I'll be doing something totally unrelated one day. I mean, yeah, that was the question, right? Just did I enjoy it?
Yeah.
Oh, and did it prepare me for
did it help you achieve your goals?
My goals?
Yeah, whatever goal you have.
Yeah, I guess I feel like I'm a pretty comfortable, independent researcher that could be successful going into any new lab, just because I learned how to learn. I haven't mastered any skills, honestly, and that's not really the point. I just am now comfortable learning and thinking critically, independently for myself, at the same time learning when to ask questions, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's what the rest of your career is for, is becoming an expert. Right now, I just feel like I'm a sponge. I'm a really good sponge,
That's the way I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
Mostly because I just lay around and do nothing. But anyway, no. So just drink lots of. Yeah. What about you, Madison? What do you? Did it help you achieve your goals? Was it a positive experience overall?
Yeah, so
Okay.
my research experiences have been overwhelmingly positive, despite the failures and setbacks I was talking about earlier. And I would say that they have helped me achieve my goals because the SURE program and URISE, the research I have been doing, is because I want to go to graduate school. And so it's very important that before you go to grad school, you learn as much as you can because undergrad is much easier in terms of research than grad school is. So I would say that the programs have definitely helped me achieve my goals.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm gonna
Yes. So before the SURE program, I never really thought about going for my master's or graduate school, but literally like a month into it, everything changed for me. I was like, you know, maybe I do. Maybe I do want to keep doing this. Maybe I do want to keep studying and learning. And it really just kind of rekindled that fire for education because I was learning something at kind of my own pace, and there was no grade to go with it. It was just progress, failure, more failures, a little bit of progress, stuff like that, So the rewards changed for my education, and I think that really opened up more options for me, if that makes sense. Like, computer science is a very wide industry, and there's a lot of little things, right? Like, for a long time, I really thought virtual reality is where I wanted to go, and I never even gave thought to data science. And now data science is where I really want to go. It's where I'm pointed, and whether I go start working next year or if I continue my research, I'll be happy working in that field.
Kennedy, how about you?
Did it like change or?
Yeah, did it inform, did it change, did it confirm what
It
you?
did. It
Okay.
told me that I was completely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with the Boulder Solar Alliance RU that I had completed, doing research full time, like 40 hours a week. Unfortunately for the short program, I completed it over the school year, so it was a little bit different. But having the experience of doing full-time research, I was like, I could absolutely spend my day doing this, and I would love to keep on doing this forever. Yeah, so really, really fantastic in that sense.
All right, and then Kayla, how about you?
I-
Confirm, change?
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say it did confirm that I don't like software very much. Not a software fan. I really like hardware. I don't think I really knew what being a hardware engineer was until I had been in my internship role. And then being on the Cummins team, my team is mostly mechanical, but there's metallurgical. My mentor's metallurgical engineering. And then there's an aerospace engineer. And an agricultural engineer, I think. But we have like a very diverse team, so that actually really made me realize how much I like working on such a diverse team, like being able to have different mindsets about any type of problem. And like my whole team is just problem solvers. Like we're the Cummins SWAT team for like the big problems that no one else can fix. And so yeah, that just like learning to be on a team like that, I guess, was definitely a super valuable experience. And being in Flex, I was just working with like other EEs, like all electrical engineers and software engineers. But it was just totally different experiences. I did enjoy both. So I mean, it didn't really help me make up my mind, but I'm like, I enjoy this aspect of this and I enjoy this aspect of this. And just being able to kind of see the different things that I could do was, I guess, great. I'm still like, I still want to do everything though.
So finishing my last semester, graduating in May, and then afterwards, I haven't decided yet, but I will be going to graduate school and pursuing a PhD in biomedical sciences.
Okay, there you go, Madison.
Same thing, finishing my last semester and also attending a PhD program somewhere.
Okay. Ken?
I am graduating in May, and I have a full-time offer with Cummins. I'm also starting a business right now. It's kind of like a consumer electronic product that we are putting on the market, launching it during South by. And then I am potentially moving to Minneapolis for the Cummins position, which is going to be very cold and I'm scared about. But yeah, other than that, I'm also the high school robotics coach. So I'm trying to like redefine protocols and like set them up for next year. So if I'm not here, they still will be able to, you know, get the students to be able to build this robot because it's super complex. And I'm teaching them electronics. I'm creating an electronics course because the robotics teacher is mechanical. So I'm creating an electronics thing that he can learn and then he can teach them.
Daniel.
I'm continuing my research with my professor. I still have another year, so it's really just whatever project she wants to go on to next for me.
Kenny.
I'm working on a paper to publish my research. I'm also completing my second honors thesis, which is a combination of poetry and Python and physics concepts. So a little weird on that one. And I was recently accepted to a PhD physics program in Utah. So
Yeah. I'm mostly shocked by second honors thesis.
Yeah,
they said I was the first to do
that's
such
a little,
a
you need
thing.
to slow down.
Yeah.
Nicholas.
Yeah, I'm moving to California. I'm going to be pursuing a PhD. Haven't quite decided which school yet, but yeah, fully funded PhD program.
Excellent. Great. That's awesome to hear with all of you guys. You guys
I'm a
got,
little starstruck. We're all pretty cool.
yeah, you guys are like, pretty dope here.
You just have to do it. I mean, and there's absolutely always something for you to do as part of a research team, whether you have been working in your classes in your junior year and you have sort of an idea of what you might want to do and you have that a stronger foundation, or you're just coming out of your intro series and you don't know anything about astronomy or astrophysics, but you're into it, you know, there's always something you can do. And I would say be an overachiever, be a sponge, take on these opportunities and these experiences to figure out exactly the type of person that you want to be and the type of researcher that you want to be. They're all good experiences, especially if they're the ones that tell you, I don't want to go down this path, and I definitely want something else. I definitely want to go down this one over here. So.
Absolutely. Daniel.
I would say office hours and ask questions. A lot of the things that I would do is, if I was in a course that I just thought was really interesting or cool, I would just go see the professor and talk to him about it. There's a few professors that I don't work with, but I've talked to them about their research and they've let me know what they do and just different aspects of that. And that gets you in contact with other opportunities. So it's always good. And one of the main problems I've had through my educational journey is I often don't ask questions when I have them, or I'll try to figure it out on my own. And that's good, and it's good to be a problem solver and try to figure it out, but you have to learn where there's a point where you need to ask the question, because it can, one, save you a lot of time, and two, sometimes you just need another pair of eyes, and it's really not that hard, but you've just been focused on it for so long, and that happens a lot in code, a lot.
I would say take risks. That's like the biggest thing. Like, don't be afraid to like tell your opinion on something. I mean, it's more like co-op and internship. I definitely said that I, thought that we should move forward and redesign this tool in a way that, using Python rather than using Excel spreadsheets, because it was way more efficient and it would be faster and a lot simpler, and then we could actually just define everything in data format. You could do data checking and all of that. So I was like, I think this is the way that the best way to move forward. And the VP is like, so you're saying we're so progressive over here, but you're saying that we're like behind the times? And I was like, well, I'm not saying we're behind the times. I'm saying we can do more and make it better for the future. And but being willing to take risks and like have those conversations with people is definitely, that was a big step. I was like, yeah.
Madison, piece of advice.
I think the biggest piece of advice I have is that finding a good mentor is worth the time investment. I'm going to graduate school, so my mind is very grad school oriented, but I think that your mentor matters more than the research that you're working on, because like we were talking about earlier, research is hard and you are going to encounter obstacles and fail sometimes. And so having the right mentor is really pivotal in those moments in which you start feeling like maybe you're inadequate, you're not smart enough, you're not a good researcher, a good student, this or that. It's very important to have somebody that you can kind of lean on to encourage you through those rough patches.
Joanne?
The biggest piece of advice for y'all would be, even if you're just interested, get involved and try it. You never know if you're gonna end up really liking it unless you try. If you had asked me 4 years ago as a freshman, do I think I would be continuing on a research path, going to graduate school? No. No, but it's because I tried and I ended up really liking it.
Nicholas, take us home.
All right. Madison kind of stole mine, so I'm currently thinking of mine. No, it was a really good point to reiterate. It just, the two main things is research and finding a good mentor. My advice is, going off of what you said, take risks. I joined Texas State as a nursing major, thinking I wanted to go to nursing school. Then I decided I wanted to go to medical school. And through continued conversation and continued exploration of my curiosities, I'm now going to a PhD program in the biomedical sciences. So don't regret any of that, and it was a lot of hard work, and it was not linear at all, but I don't know how everyone else feels, but I feel extremely confident in the decision that I've made for my career because of all the trial and error that I did in the last 4 years. So take risks.
Okay, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate hearing everything that you had to say today.